Did you know that recent studies have revealed that $10 billion will be spent in excess energy production unless urban heat islands are mitigated by additional trees, landscape, and natural materials, according to Land magazine? And only 14 out of 15 trees that could help remedy that situation will survive each year, according to urban forestry and urban greening. Meanwhile, in our offices, disengaged employees are not only slowing down entitlements, but now costing U.S. firms over $300 billion per year, according to Gallup, Fortune, and Blackhawk Engagement Solutions. Stop. This video is different from what you're expecting. This is not a self-aggrandizing video. I'm not going to pummel you over the head with all my past experience and qualifications. But because they are important in their own right, I have included those documents for you separately. This video is actually the opposite. In this video, I want to instead show you what I actually do, what my raw passion is, and why I believe it can help you overcome the problems of declining employee health and satisfaction, as well as tackle increasing costs in the urban environments that we have a hand in creating. Boosting productivity so that our projects can help the Earth in a smart, sustainable way that is practical to build and economically feasible for developers. Then you can decide whether you think we're a good fit. I'm Caryn Johnson, AICP. I have 18 years experience in urban planning and design. I have a Bachelor of Science in Landscape Architecture and a graduate certificate in Geographic Information Systems. I'm probably best known as an expert in practical landscape solutions and an innovator in successfully incorporating nature into urban environments. I specialize in the streamlining of review process and finding win-win proposals to meet client, customer, and municipality expectations and requirements. For the past 6 years specifically, I've been overseeing and identifying key issues on all levels of projects so that teams are efficient, productive, healthy, and happy. So now I'd like to show you why smart green development is the future of urban planning in Denver and how to make it happen efficiently while maintaining a healthy, productive, and happy team. Smart green development is the future of urban design everywhere. Decreasing our carbon footprint and increasing our resilience depend on it. As governments and the world at large become increasingly conscious of this fact, we're heading towards it becoming a priority requirement in the mainstream. This means that the planning and design firms that are doing the work correctly and efficiently now are those who will prosper long term. This way, we all prosper long term as scientific evidence mounts, proving that integrating nature into our cities helps us all on a deeper psychological level, as well as cooling urban heat islands, decreasing energy use, and attracting people to spend time in these greener urban environments. One of the biggest challenges all landscape architects have is getting full designs accepted and implemented. When cuts are made, usually the landscape is the first to go or at least be reduced. By showing the value that added landscape creates, more clients, customers, and even consultants can be convinced to make an investment. Whether an area is urban or suburban, there can exist many seas of concrete. But in order to increase quality landscaped areas, we must gain investment in our smart green solutions and therefore often first need to reveal the problems. One of the most important keys to alleviating the heat islands that occur in largely paved areas is softening and breaking up large hard surfaces with more natural materials and plants. To best explain this, I will walk you through a real-world example I recently oversaw. Here's how we helped take the city of Centennial in a smart green direction. The city of Centennial was seen as a young, affluent, cookie-cutter community by its citizens. However, there are many areas in need of revitalization, especially in the landscape. But until the community was able to see these diverse areas, our solutions would gain no traction. To begin to remedy this, I created 27 maps using census tract and block data in GIS, like this one with residents' age data. In this map, it was important to show that throughout the many residential census blocks in the city, there are a high number of people over the age of 60. I included in the narrative that I created in Word that because of the rising numbers of seniors, the need for supports, including park amenities, was steadily increasing. This map from the same publication shows vacancy data. I explained that though many people don't know it, there are actually many vacant buildings and homes in Centennial. Many of these areas could be revitalized with better incorporation of landscape and other natural materials appropriate for this region. Developers and business owners could see a greater influx of customers and an increase in value to their establishments with the addition of proper plantings. I later edited the recommended trees in the Land Development Code for Centennial to ensure that the trees used in development had a higher rate of survival, thereby helping to sustain the value added to businesses by landscape. Another working example is in Greenwood Village. One of our most important audiences is the City Council, who will ultimately decide on many of our green solutions. Because so much often depends upon a single vote, there are important and key ways to prepare, talk to, and work with city representatives to ensure greater success in getting our green solutions approved. What we've learned about Greenwood Village City Council is that they value commercial development and they want to limit building heights to preserve mountain views. An ongoing project in Greenwood Village is the Orchard Station subarea in the Comprehensive Plan. It's west of the Tech Center, but commonly considered a part of it. The council members generally perceive that most of the multi-story commercial buildings in this area have a 1.2 floor area ratio or lower, and they see this number as ideal. But the issue is, targeting such a low ratio really limits commercial density, even where it might be most appropriate to have higher density, which is the case in the Orchard Station area. I wanted to show council members that there are other accepted areas with floor area ratios higher than 1.2 near this area being studied. Shown here is one of the preliminary massing concepts for the Orchard Station area, shown in context of what's existing around it. The prime example of nearby buildings with higher FARs was the Village Center area, shown here and located south of that Orchard Station study area. This map I created in GIS is the Village Center area, shown on the last slide, and located south of the Tech Center. It shows that of 11 developed properties in the Village Center area, 7 of those have higher FAR than 1.2. And this map shows that there are 6 more properties, in addition to the existing 7, with entitlements to have a higher FAR as well. These areas south and west of the Denver Tech Center and close to I-25 are appropriate for higher commercial density and building heights, and these maps show it. Another huge key to success that most urban developers miss when it comes to cities, customers, and clients is making nature itself a selling point. Nature adds more value than most of us realize. Case in point, in 2015, an international team overlaid health questionnaire responses for more than 31,000 Toronto residents onto a map. Those living on blocks with more trees showed a boost in heart and metabolic health equivalent to what one would experience with a $20,000 gain in income. Scientific evidence has also shown that a 40 to 50-minute trip to the backyard or a park provides massive health and psychological benefits, according to Nat Geo. These benefits include measurable stress relief, like up to a 16% decrease in the stress hormone cortisol, a 2% drop in blood pressure, and a 4% drop in heart rate. Not only are there physical and mental health benefits, but economic ones too. Increased marketability, energy savings, and higher perceived economic value. Here's another effective path to a more natureful environment. Overall compactness of development is great because it helps avoid sprawl and long commutes. And when price is calculated by square footage, the value of open space and landscape can get lost. However, there are specific ways to incorporate nature and plantings into development while maintaining higher densities. Many natural features are already there, making upfront costs to incorporate nature minimal. They just need to be preserved and maximized. Here's a project I led that preserves, buffers, and takes advantage of trees and waterways outside Smithville, Texas. At first, we weren't sure whether we could get the density desired by the client on this property due to the many trees, wetlands, and significant topography in places. But I was able to strategically locate enough square footage and appropriately sized lots and buildings where the trees and topography would work best. You can see from my graphic work in AutoCAD and Photoshop here that nature is valued among the many lots and neighborhood commercial centers, and why the clients and buyers would appreciate this environment too. In these graphics of the riverside amenities from the same project, I explain it's important to respect the geology and scale of the region with the architecture used, because this is a secondary way of working with nature that maximizes the benefits and natural experience in these environments. Also in the graphics, I show how and why much care was taken not just to preserve the habitat of the whole property, but to respect each individual ecological zone within it. Working with nature in this way increases the longevity of the landscape and reduces maintenance and long-term costs. This type of booklet is a great way to illustrate these concepts because presenting concepts and outlining standards in a clear, illustrative booklet can help bring all parties on board with the vision. This booklet I created is another good example of incorporating nature into a project. This proposal resembles a planned unit development for Dripping Springs, Texas. The advantage of clearly outlining standards in a booklet like this is that you can reduce building setbacks from what would normally be required, create more density, less sprawl, and make sure that the quality is maintained in the residential environment in other ways than just a larger distance between homes. As in the first Texas example, trees are preserved and added on and between both residential and commercial lots and as appropriate according to access to water and the ecological zone in which they are located. I outlined design standards very clearly for this community plan, including lot standards, durable fences, and landscape. As with the previous project, they wanted a unique feel to it. The team was struggling to create a specialized font for the main text, but it didn't align well when it was put together into words at first. I was able to refine the letters to get the unique, legible quality the client wanted, as shown here, as well as the graphics and the complete booklet in Illustrator and InDesign. The graphic quality and guidelines all come together to show people how to make good choices in products that are durable, beautiful, and appropriate for the environment. It's important to know and show that the best choices will reduce waste, water, and energy use, result in the most economic routes for the long run, and make the environment vibrant and healthy for all who live and visit there. The next examples show some more project graphics that help convey these natural concepts successfully. In this project I led for Loveland, Colorado, the Boyd Lake area is treasured as one of the few public areas to access water for swimming and boating. Adequate density had to be achieved in order to make the project profitable. But trail, water, and green connections also had to be incorporated in a way that would maximize the existing environment, the lake primarily, as well as the survival rate of trees. You can see from the graphics I created in AutoCAD and Photoshop that the natural elements are considered an exciting amenity because the lake and green connections to it are highlighted as very attractive reasons that the residents and business owners would want to locate here. In contrast to the previous project, though, not many trees were existing here, which is typical in an arid environment, even near water bodies. I selected the trees to be planted based on those varieties with the most successful history in the area. This ensures that the investment in the amenity of nature is sustained for the longest term possible, reducing the cost of maintaining the beautifully designed environment. We can deliver rich green environments even in small, limited landscaped areas. Even parking islands can be maximized. Another great way to deliver this is by going vertical with trees and vines that are in proportion with the height of buildings. To illustrate the going vertical concept, let's look at another urban commercial project from Greenwood Village. Shown here is a visual simulation of a project I managed and successfully took to City Council. In this office project, we originally asked that the parking structure be located underground, at least 2 to 3 of the 5 to 6 stories. However, the cost to do so was too high. Since the developer proposed it to be almost entirely above ground, using plants and trees to screen this parking structure was an important issue. The landscape architectural consultants for the project proposed to use a green screen cable system to support ivies growing up to screen the parking structure in addition to large trees. However, ivies actually climb by clinging to concrete and masonry using little suction cups rather than twining, and they just don't adhere to little cables. The twining characteristic is what would be needed in the vines to grow on the cables. Knowing this, I provided a study of the successful and not so successful vines at the Denver Zoo parking structure. The zoo has a similar cable system on their parking structure to that proposed in the Village Center DTC project. In these photos, I identified which vines were growing on the concrete versus the cables. The first example here shows the ivy, the original vine proposed by the consultants, growing only on concrete, not on the cables. The upper photo here continues to show the ivy on the concrete to the left, but also shows honeysuckle to the right. And in the bottom photo, the honeysuckle is on the left, with chocolate vine on the right. You can see that both the honeysuckle and chocolate vines do twine and climb the green screen cable system, though the chocolate vine doesn't quite reach the top of the 3-story parking structure. Moving down the structure farther to the right, we see the chocolate vine again on the upper left. Lower down were some trumpet vines, which would normally twine up a cable structure. However, they appeared to have some powdery mildew problems, probably because of insufficient sunlight. In any case, no trumpet vines were working in this situation. Finally, on a different side of the structure, a different type of honeysuckle, trumpet honeysuckle, not to be confused with trumpet vine, was doing quite well on the cables, similar to the other type of honeysuckle vine. After receiving the photo study of vines from me, the consultant agreed to use honeysuckle, chocolate vine, and grapevines for the cable structure because they're all twining vines. They also proposed limited use of Engelmann ivy on solid masonry areas, the correct application for that vine. After the choice of the vines was resolved, one final issue remained. As mentioned, the height of the zoo parking structure was 3 stories. However, the Village Center DTC parking structure was to be 5 to 6 stories tall. I knew the vines would not grow to the top as was shown here in this initial rendering. So to clarify, I asked for this black and white graphic, which shows a hatched area with the anticipated 15-year height of the vines, compared to the height of the structure. Now we got a realistic idea of how effective each plant type would actually be at screening the structure. As you can see, planning and getting a green urban environment approved and successfully executed is both an art and a science, but I believe that in order for our proposals to be accepted long term, we have to make sure we deliver to the end users. You'd be surprised at how many planning design firms miss critical steps to this end entirely. Property owners and managers like low costs. Unfortunately, lowest upfront costs can mean highest long-term costs. We need to be able to account for some change and adjustments and speak to long-term durability, savings, and resilience. So here's another great example of how to show developers the best and most sustainable choices. Another way to show a client or customer the best, most sustainable choice is to give them a visual simulation of the end result, similar to the last example. In this courtyard I modeled in SketchUp, we have opportunities for plantings and to a limited degree, going vertical again. Factors that should be accounted for include sun, climbing ability, maintenance, and also offering a refuge for bees in this limited area. For an example, some varieties of clematis vine could appear to meet all these factors perfectly. But even if lower maintenance variety was originally chosen, oftentimes substitutions occur last minute, which could result in a high maintenance variety of clematis being chosen. Honeysuckle is one of my favorite vine choices because in addition to all varieties being low maintenance, it blooms within the first 1 or 2 seasons, it's great for aesthetics, the bees, and for climbing. This graphic can help sell that choice. All plants, even with good maintenance, will someday need replacing. If people are familiar with some old plants that don't look good, they'll associate that appearance with similar plants, sometimes thinking no planting is better. That's why we need to address respecting history and context. Shown in these photos is the only remaining Mizpah arch in Colorado, and as far as I can determine, the world, and is located in Brush, Colorado. There once was another Mizpah arch in Union Station in Denver. The arch shown here was built in 1927 and marks Ebenezer, now a care home for the elderly, including hospice. At the time the arch was built, carriages entered and exited through it, and vines were planted to grow on it. But with time, the vines grew old and more difficult to maintain and were removed. The road was also removed and a new asphalt road was located south of this area with a parking lot. By the time I was hired to do a design in 2010, the arch was still a cherished historic landmark, but was used as nothing more than a sign with Kentucky bluegrass growing under it. While the director of the facility wanted to revitalize the arch, she wanted to make sure that vines would in no way cause damage to it long term. I researched through photos the types of plants that grew historically on and near the arch to enliven and reactivate the area with green. The vines I chose were similar to those growing on it in the past, a type of ivy, which clings to the surface of the masonry without twining between the bricks, which would cause damage. While the old vines were eventually perceived to be a problem, they really were a good choice in the past. Newly planted vines and a re-established path have revitalized this landmark, incorporated nature, and made it more lush, welcoming, and a place people want to explore. Now let's address writing and proofing. One of the most important parts of urban design often has to do with writing, including proofing. There can be multiple valid perspectives which should be left largely intact. Changes should be made mainly for the purpose of clarity. Sometimes we see opportunities about green connections in environments like this proposal for the Midland Railroad Corridor. These connections often involve descriptions of places being connected, which speak to the character of the corridor. This is one of many places that requires writing. My proofreading skills were requested in this case because I balanced legibility with respect for the style and purpose laid out by the original writer. Once writing formats include graphics like the example shown here, they can be most clearly marked by hand. However, when documents are still mainly text and where efficiency and timing are critical, digital and tracked marks made in Microsoft Word documents are best. Now that we've covered some of the many intricacies of making sure that the details of our green environments are delivered and executed successfully, we now have to understand a critical point that many get wrong, and one that, if not gotten right, will cause our teams at some point sooner or later to fail. That's managing, running, inspiring, and leading a highly successful team. Recognizing different valid perspectives is one of the best ways to motivate our teams. People do things for their own reasons, not ours. All you can do is create an environment in which people are motivated to do their best because they are allowed to do their best. We often consider our own style of doing things to be right, and rather than taking advantage of different styles and strengths, we ask people to do things our way. This not only results in disengagement from the members of our team who are different, but also the disengagement of the members of our audience, clients, or customers who are different. Shown here are ways to identify the strengths of our team members and build upon them. The first is from Gallup called StrengthsFinder, and the second is called DISC. I use the second one at times when leading a 5 to 10 minute huddle, as I have been every other week at the Greenwood Village Community Development Department. DISC is a great reminder of how our differences can benefit everyone, and these very brief huddles are great for maintaining the connections and communications among the whole department without taking up the time for an entire meeting. They can be fun too, which I'll talk more about in a minute. Here's a closer look at the StrengthsFinder readout. It very specifically targets each individual's strengths to help shine a light on which tasks and teams each person would excel. And here again is the DISC analysis of styles. It can be used to identify how teams can best work together, how to deliver messages to diverse audiences and communities, and how best to create smaller teams to work on targeted projects. Another factor in motivation is promoting the complete health of team members. People are more creative problem solvers when they're allowed to take care of their health and manage most of their time. In research on efficiency and health in the office, I pitched a presentation for a new paradigm in holding meetings. I offered tips on shortening meetings and the benefits of sometimes standing during meetings rather than sitting. For example, sitting most of the day has been shown by the Mayo Clinic to increase the risk of heart attack to the same degree that smoking does. Another study has shown that when attendees stand, decisions are made in 1/3 less time. After I led a huddle about this concept, half the participants began standing at internal meetings. I also recently successfully used a technique called the KJ method. Have you ever ended up wasting a bunch of time on one person's pet issue only to realize later that it was the least of your concerns? The KJ method lets us focus our often limited time on what the majority agrees are the most motivating and important priorities for nearly any issue, and avoid those fringe issues. The issue we focused on was office communication. Overwhelmingly, the consensus was that we needed breaks from straight task orientation to have a little fun with each other. The slightly less work-oriented breaks have helped oil the gears and get communication flowing better in the office. Even these brief interactions and the feeling of being heard each week make everyone more likely to talk to each other about important things, which can help get things right and increase productivity when you least expect it. This method has been used in forums for design as well as the military for efficient prioritization of tasks and issues. It's key to stay current with the developing realm of team building as well as that of planning, which can progress rapidly too. You've already seen many of the new studies and research in the area of urban planning. Often the solutions we seek have already been implemented somewhere else. To the greatest extent possible and where there is political will, codes and policies should be updated to allow or encourage those solutions and their implementation in our region. The City of Greenwood Village has various intentional limits on fencing, for example, which has indirectly resulted in the deaths of many pets by coyotes in the city limits. A request was made for greater and broader education efforts at a city council meeting recently by a citizen who had lost his dog. Shortly after that, I found and shared the work done by the Coyote Project with our police department, who heads coyote management programs for the city. The Coyote Project shares and adjusts as appropriate the flyers shown above, disseminating best practices for coexisting with coyotes. This program has already been adopted by Superior, Colorado. And this is just one example of working across department lines. Urban planning that incorporates nature usually results in better health and prosperity for everyone, which is why I'm passionate about staying current with research in planning issues. There are important opportunities everywhere for smart green development concepts to be applied to projects on every level, as outlined in Biophilic Cities by Tim Beatley, for example. These are just some of the many ways we can make progress on the problems in our offices, reduce heat islands, bring nature into our community, and make it resilient. By speaking the language of landscape, sustainability, and environments properly, we can successfully promote quality choices for our clients, customers, and developers. This is who I am. This is what I was made to do. I hope you feel the same. If you do, I look forward to working with you. Please call me to discuss this further, 970-768-4778, or alternatively, email me here, geoamyideas@gmail.com. I'm Amy Caryn Johnson, and I look forward to talking to you.